My coworker filed an HR complaint because I flirted with the guy she had a crush on, who was actually my boyfriend of 3 years. She humiliated herself so badly she quit 2 weeks later. I graduated college with a degree in accounting and couldn't land a job for 5 months. I applied to over 40 places. A handful of interviews, but nothing stuck. I was starting to think my degree was a $38,000 piece of paper destined to gather dust in my desk drawer forever. My boyfriend Leo and I had been together 3 years by that point, and his mom Francine owned a mid-size insurance company with about 60 employees. One night at dinner, Francine mentioned they had an opening in accounting and that I should apply. I said no immediately. I didn't want special treatment. She set down her fork and told me there wouldn't be any. I'd go through the same interview process as everyone else, and if the department head didn't think I was qualified, I wouldn't get the job. Leo backed her up, saying his mom ran the company like a business, not a family favor factory. So I applied. I interviewed with the department head for 45 minutes and got the job on my resume and my answers alone. Francine told me afterward she hadn't sat in on the interview, hadn't said a word to anyone about who I was, and hadn't even mentioned my name to the hiring team. I asked her and Leo to keep it that way permanently. I didn't want to be the girl who got the job because she was dating the owner's son. Leo worked there too, running operations from his own office on the second floor, while I sat on the first floor with the rest of the accounting team. We agreed that at work we'd be strictly professional, no pet names, no hand-holding, no lunch dates in the break room. If we talked, it would be about work, and it would be short. For the first couple of months, it worked perfectly. Nobody knew. I showed up, did my job, went home. My team liked me. My manager Dawson said I was picking things up fast. Everything was fine. Then I started noticing something. The women on my floor talked about Leo constantly, not in a professional way, more of a he's so cute I wonder if he's single way. 3 of them in particular: Heather, Jess, and Naomi. They sat near me, and every time Leo walked through the first floor to check on something, they'd whisper and giggle like we were back in high school. Heather was the worst. She'd invent any excuse to head up to the second floor, volunteering for every task that touched operations. She brought Leo coffee once and spent 2 days telling the whole break room about the smile he gave her. Jess was subtler. She'd fix her hair the moment Leo came downstairs. Naomi flat out told me at lunch that she planned to ask him out before the company holiday party. I just nodded and kept eating. What was I supposed to say? That's my boyfriend. I'd chosen to keep it private, and I was sticking with that. The trouble started the afternoon. Leo came to my desk to ask about a billing number on a client file. Totally normal work stuff. He stood there maybe 3 minutes. We talked through the file. He said thanks, and left. That was it. The next morning, Heather asked if Leo and I knew each other outside of work. I said no. She said it seemed like he was awfully comfortable talking to me. I told her he was just asking about a file. Okay, she said, but the tone said she didn't believe me and was giving me one chance to come clean. After that, Leo came by my desk twice more that same week, since we were working the same account. Both times quick, both times professional. But Heather started running her mouth, telling Jess and Naomi I was finding excuses to talk to Leo, that I was always watching him walk by. I wasn't. I was at my desk doing my job. The following week, Naomi stopped eating lunch with me. Jess relocated her things to a different part of the desk cluster, so she wasn't next to me anymore. Heather turned cold, short answers, no eye contact, one-word replies if I asked about a file. Then, during a break, she told me it was kind of obvious I was trying to get Leo's attention and that it was unprofessional. I told her I was just doing my job and Leo came to me about work matters. Sure, she said. After that, things escalated fast. All 3 started going to Dawson with complaints about me. Heather claimed I spent too much time away from my desk. Untrue. Jess claimed I made personal calls on the clock. I don't even take personal calls at work. Naomi claimed I was being disruptive in the office. Dawson pulled me aside, said he'd gotten some complaints but hadn't personally noticed any issues and just wanted me aware. I thanked him and went back to my desk. Heather wasn't satisfied. She went over Dawson's head, straight to HR, and filed a formal written complaint claiming I was engaging in inappropriate behavior with a senior member of the company and creating a hostile, uncomfortable work environment. She meant Leo. She filed an HR complaint because I talked to my own boyfriend at work about a billing number. HR called me in the next morning. A woman named Dana sat me down in a small conference room and told me there was a complaint about my conduct with Leo. She asked, point blank, if there was anything going on between us. I had a choice: keep the secret and fight this alone or end it right there. I took a breath and just said it. Leo is my boyfriend. We've been together 3 years. His mother Francine is the one who told me about the job opening. Dana actually blinked, like her brain was scrambling to catch up. Her whole face shifted. She leaned back and looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Why wasn't this disclosed when you were hired? I told her the truth. I wanted to earn my spot without anyone treating me differently. Francine hadn't sat in on my interview, hadn't spoken to anyone about me, and I'd gone through the same process as any other applicant. Dana asked if I could back that up. I pulled up my phone and showed her 3 years of text between me and Leo. Dates, conversations, photos, including messages from before I even applied, where Francine told me about the opening, and I said I didn't want any handouts. Dana scrolled through a few, her face tightening, not angry, more like she was piecing something together she really didn't like. She set my phone down and picked up the folder with Heather's complaint, reading a line out loud. It says here you were, quote, engaging in flirtatious and potentially predatory behavior toward a senior employee to gain workplace advantages. I almost laughed. Predatory. Toward my own boyfriend. Because he asked about a billing number at my desk. Dana closed the folder and said she'd need to speak with Leo and Francine separately. This changed the context completely, but she still had to follow procedure. I said I understood and left. Back at my desk, Heather was watching. How'd it go? She asked. Smile sweet on the surface, something else underneath. She clearly thought I just sat through some kind of punishment. I looked her dead in the eye. Great, actually. Her smile flickered. She had no idea what to do with that. Within the hour, Leo got called to HR. Then Francine. By 4:30, I had an email from Dana. The complaint was found without merit. The matter closed. No further action against me. The next morning, Francine called me into her office. She said she respected that I'd tried to keep things private, but going forward, the relationship needed formal disclosure for legal and policy reasons. She handed me a form, and I filled it out right there. Then she told me something that reframed the whole situation. situation. This wasn't Heather's first complaint. 8 months earlier, she'd filed one against another woman on operations, in a nearly identical situation, accusing her of being unprofessional around a male supervisor. Also unfounded. This was never about Leo. It wasn't even really about me. It was a pattern. Heather wanted something, decided someone else was in her way, and used the system to try to remove them. Francine said Heather's file was under review. After that, Dawson pulled me into a conference room and shut the door. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I wasn't expecting that." He kept going. He should have pushed back harder when the complaints started coming in. 3 women, same week, same new hire, none of them able to give a specific example that should have been a red flag, and he'd let it slide because he didn't want to get in the middle of it. That was wrong of him. I told him I appreciated it and understood. He looked relieved for a second. Then his expression shifted. "I want you to know Heather came to me yesterday and asked if you were getting fired. I told her that wasn't happening," he said, "and she didn't take it well. She'd filed that complaint genuinely believing it would get me fired, then walked into his office the next day to check on it like she was tracking a delivery. But Heather wasn't done. 2 days later, Dana called me back to HR. I sat in the chair I was really starting to hate, and her expression told me this wouldn't be quick. "I'm going to be straight with you," she said. "Heather filed a second complaint this morning. I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. A second complaint?" She nodded. "This one was different. Not that I'd behaved inappropriately with Leo, but that the first complaint had been mishandled, and that I'd received preferential treatment because of a personal connection to the company owner." She'd somehow pieced together my link to Francine, though she still didn't know about Leo, and was using it to claim the whole process was rigged. Dana said she personally saw no substance to it, but a formal complaint meant a formal investigation. My frustration was climbing. I'd done everything right, kept things private, told the truth the second I was asked, disclosed the relationship, filled out the form. Now Heather was weaponizing the one thing I couldn't change, that my boyfriend's mom owned the company, to make it look like I was being protected. I asked Dana if Heather could just keep filing complaints until one stuck. She chose her words carefully. There were limits, and we were getting close to them, but she had to follow procedure. While that investigation ran, Heather launched a whisper campaign across the floor, catching people in the break room and hallway. "It's crazy how some people get protected around here. I just think it's unfair when someone has connections and the rest of us are out here actually earning our spots." She never used my name. She didn't need to. People started pulling back. A guy from Claims who always said good morning just stopped. A front desk woman who used to chat with me gave me one-word answers. I walked into the break room one afternoon and caught 2 women near the microwave, one saying, "I heard she only got the job because she knows the owner," the other nodding. "That explains why she never gets in trouble." They both went quiet the second they saw me. I filled my water bottle and walked out without a word. Then Jess came to my desk wearing a look of rehearsed concern. "I just want you to know, I don't have anything against you personally," she said. I waited. "But Heather's not wrong that it looks weird. You should think about whether this job is really the right fit. Are you telling me to quit?" She shrugged. "I'm just saying it might be easier for everyone. Easier for everyone. Not easier for me, easier for everyone. Like my presence was the problem. Like the fix for Heather filing false complaints and running a smear campaign was for me to just disappear and make it convenient for all of them." I said nothing, just looked at her until she got uncomfortable enough to walk away. That night I told Leo everything. The whispers, the cold shoulders, being told to quit. He was on the couch when I walked in and could read the bad news on my face before I said anything. I sat down and just started talking. He listened without interrupting. Didn't try to fix it mid-story. Just let me get it all out. When I finished, his jaw was tight, hands pressed together between his knees. He was furious, clearly, but holding it in because he knew I needed to talk, not listen to him vent. "This isn't fair to you," he said, voice low and steady but with something sharp underneath. "You shouldn't have to fight this hard to keep a job you earned." I agreed. I'd gone through the same process as everyone else. Showed up every day, did the work, got good feedback. I hadn't asked for anything special and hadn't received anything special. The only thing I'd done wrong was fall for someone whose mom happened to own the company, and I'd tried to handle it as responsibly as I could. "I'm not quitting," I told him. "That's what she wants." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. No argument, no talking me out of it or into it, he just accepted it, because he knew me well enough to know I meant it. The next day, I decided I was done playing defense. I opened a blank document and wrote out everything that had happened since I started every false claim to Dawson, every cold comment from Heather, every lie, with dates, times, names, details. 3 full pages laying out a clear pattern of targeted harassment, including what Francine had told me about Heather's earlier unfounded complaint against the operations employee. I emailed the whole thing to Dana with screenshots attached that afternoon. A few days later, Dana called me in. "The second complaint has been dismissed," she said, then kept going. "There was more to it than that. Heather's pattern of behavior had triggered a formal review of her conduct. The first complaint against me was baseless. The second was retaliatory. And when they pulled her file, they found the complaint she'd filed against another employee the previous year, also unfounded. 3 strikes. 3 different women. 3 fake complaints, all from the same person, all built on the same jealousy dressed up as professional concern. Dana told me Heather was being placed on a formal written warning with a behavioral performance improvement plan. 1 more incident, 1 more false complaint, 1 more act of retaliation, and she'd be terminated. I thanked Dana, shook her hand, and walked out. When I pushed through the door to the first floor, Heather was standing near the front desk, not sitting at her station, just standing there like she'd been waiting for me. The second she saw me, she started walking, not toward her desk, not toward the break room, straight at me, right through the middle of the open office where everyone could see. She stopped about 4 feet away, and her voice carried loud enough that nobody on the floor missed it. "Are you happy now? You got your boyfriend's mommy to protect you, and now I'm the one in trouble?" I stopped. I didn't step back, didn't look away, just let her words sit in the air. Every person on that floor was watching. Keyboards stopped clicking. Calls got put on hold. The whole room froze like someone had hit pause. Heather kept going, voice climbing and shaking at the same time. "You think nobody knows? You've been playing this whole office, acting like some normal new hire when you're sleeping with the owner's son." I didn't yell, didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice or step toward her, none of what she probably expected. I just looked at her calmly. "Yes, Leo is my boyfriend. We've been together 3 years. I asked him and his mother to keep it private because I wanted to earn my place here on my own. I never flirted with him at work, never chased him. Every conversation you saw was about work. You filed a complaint against me for talking to my own boyfriend about a billing number. Dead silence. The kind where you can hear air moving through the vents and the faint buzz of the lights. Nobody moved. Nobody whispered. Heather's face went full red from her neck up, the kind you can't hide or laugh off. Jess had a hand over her mouth 3 desks away. Naomi was staring at the floor like she wanted it to swallow her. Heather tried to spin it, voice now more desperate than angry. So you lied to all of us? You sat there and let me and Naomi and Jess talk about him and didn't say a word? You were laughing at us the whole time. I shook my head slowly. I wasn't laughing at anyone. I was doing my job. You're the one who spent months gossiping, filing false complaints, and trying to get me fired because a man you had a crush on didn't pay attention to you. That's not my fault, Heather. Someone on the far side of the room let out a low whistle, not mocking. More the sound you make watching something land so hard there's nothing left to say. Heather scanned the room for one ally, one nodding face, one person looking at me with suspicion instead of her. She found nobody. The 2 women from the break room stared at their desks. The guy from claims who'd stopped saying good morning had his jaw clenched at his screen. Jess still had her hand over her mouth. Naomi still hadn't looked up. Everyone on that floor had just watched Heather scream at me in public, then watched me calmly explain she'd filed an HR complaint over a conversation about a billing number. There was no spin left, no version where she was the victim. She'd done this to herself, out loud, in front of everyone, by choosing to walk up to me in the middle of the office instead of sitting down and staying quiet. Then the front door opened. Francine walked in from an off-site meeting, bag over one shoulder, keys still in hand. She took 3 steps in and stopped, taking in the frozen room. Heather's red face, me standing calm in the middle of it. Is there a problem here? Heather opened her mouth, then closed it, looked at Francine, looked at me, looked at the floor, then turned around and walked back to her desk without another word. She didn't speak to anyone for the rest of the day. The next morning she gave her 2 weeks notice sent to Dawson and HR. No reason given. She didn't need to give one. Everyone already knew. She spent those 2 weeks barely speaking, doing the bare minimum, avoiding eye contact with most people. Whatever version of herself she'd built in that office, the loyal, hardworking employee just looking out for everyone was gone. Everyone had seen who she really was, and there was no pretending anymore. 2 days after she gave notice, Jess found me in the break room. I was pouring coffee when she walked in and stood there a second, working up the nerve. I owe you an apology, she said. I should have asked you what was going on instead of just believing Heather. I'm sorry. I could tell she meant it, no performance, no angling for my good side now that the power had shifted. Just genuine embarrassment. I told her I appreciated it and held no grudge. She nodded and left, and things between us were fine after that. Not best friends, but fine. Naomi never said anything, no apology, no acknowledgement out loud, but she stopped avoiding me. Started eating in the break room again when I was there. Nodded at me in the hallway. Not much, but enough. I didn't need a speech. I just needed the nonsense to stop, and it did. Heather finished her 2 weeks and left without a goodbye email or a farewell lunch. Just packed her desk on the last day and walked out. I heard she told someone in accounting she was leaving because the company had changed and she didn't feel supported anymore. Even at the very end, she couldn't own what she'd done, had to make it someone else's fault. I kept my job, I kept my boyfriend. Francine never treated me differently after the disclosure. Dawson went back to being a good manager. People found out about Leo and me, and most of them simply didn't care. Heather did all of this to herself, every piece of it. I didn't expose her, didn't plan any revenge. All I did was tell the truth when I was finally forced to, and the truth did the rest. She filed complaints built on lies, turned coworkers against me over nothing, and tried to get me fired because the guy she wanted was already taken. And when it all came apart, she stood in the middle of the office and made sure everyone in the building watched it happen. I just went back to my desk and opened my files.